everyone, and welcome back to Story of the World Highlights. Today we'll be discussing Chapter 25. Now, Chapter 25 is a very packed chapter with lots of things that happened, but it's all about the French Revolution. So let's get started with the very beginning. So, the state of France after the 7 Years' War was not very good. France was a very unhappy place to be. The people were just so poor and so hungry. France had spent all its money on wars, both when the Sun King was king and he was trying to expand. We had those 3 pointless wars. France was involved in all of them, and the 7 Years' War. And if you remember, the French financially and with people supported the Americans in the American Revolution. So France was not doing so well money-wise. And you would think that the king would be trying to save money, trying to do things to help make more money. But instead, he was spending money on parties and clothes. So was his wife, and so were the noblemen. And this just continued to build anger and upset in the poor French people who were starving. And so the king, to answer this upset, he said, we're already taxing the peasants on literally everything. They even have to pay money to cross a bridge. There's not much else I can tax them on. I guess I could tax the nobles. And the nobles are like, no. Do not tax us. And Louis didn't really know what to do. This is Louis the 16th. And so he decided to have an assembly called the Meeting of the Estates General. So in France, they have a system of 3 estates. The first estate is the clergymen, and the clergymen are all of the priests. They are a Catholic country. Then the second estate is the noblemen, and the noblemen, as you know, have a lot of power in the country. And then the third estate is everyone else. So the third estate was the biggest by far. Now, what Louis decided to do is he said, all right, listen up, all of you people. There were so many people there. Go into your own chamber, your own room with your peoples, and decide what you're going to do for your 1 vote. You all get 1 vote. And that way there'll be 3 votes and the majority wins. And the third estate said, that's not fair. There's more of us than them. And so they tried to start getting certain priests or noblemen to join their side, to try to earn some power in the vote. And noblemen, afraid that the third estate might win, rushed to Louis the 16th and said, oh, king, they're going to try and take over. We need to do something. So what did the king decide to do? Well, he decided to lock them in their chamber. He said, you can't vote if you can't get to the voting area. And the third estate was just completely upset by this. They said, this is ridiculous. This is unfair. And they left and made their own meeting in a tennis court. And in this tennis court, they decided to name themselves the National Assembly. And the National Assembly was going to be the new government, and they were going to make a constitution and really take over France. As you can see, they were really influenced by what the Americans had just done. And Louis was trying to tell them to stop, but all of his soldiers, they qualified as the third estate. So they were probably helping the third estate. The National Assembly. And so things were not going well. Meanwhile, in Paris, Parisian people had heard what was happening with the National Assembly, and they also were ready for a revolution. So they did something called storming the Bastille. It's a big event that is still celebrated every year in France. And what this was in Paris, there's a giant royal prison called the Bastille. And there weren't many prisoners in it at the time, but a lot of weapons and gunpowder were stored there. So a swarm of French peasants stormed the Bastille, set things on fire, let those 7 prisoners free, and took all the weaponry, all the weapons and gunpowder. And now they were armed. the royal family had to flee to their castle in Paris. And the National Assembly officially took over the government. And they made a constitution. And they said, first, no more titles. There are no more noblemen. So a lot of noblemen fled France. And they had to figure out now what to do about the king. Some people said, let's just have a constitutional monarchy. Though he'll just have no power. And others said, no, absolutely no, king. We need a republic. So that was a big debate at the time. Now, the royal family is trapped in their castle. They're trying to escape because maybe they can get to freedom and try to figure out this mess. So they tried to escape. But when they tried to escape, they were spotted and they were sent back to the castle. Now, while all of this was happening, Prussia and a lot of Europe were watching. Prussia decided to write a letter to the National Assembly and tell them, if you hurt that king, if you mess with him or his family, we will come and attack you. And the National Assembly was like, this king tattled on us. He told the Prussians, the king is a traitor. He wanted to start an attack on his own country. And so they decided to put all the royals in jail, a dungeon that they could never escape. And they also hired Maximilien Robespierre to be the head of public security and safety. Now, what did that mean? Well, it meant that he had the power to kill anyone who was suspicious and might be supporting the royals. And at the same time all of this was happening, people in West France who were very Catholic were coming to try and protest against the National Assembly because they were taking away the power of priests. And so Robespierre killed them all. He also went and killed the king. He said he's a traitor, he must go. And the method used to kill all these people was a new invention called the guillotine, where you put your head down and a giant blade comes down and chops off your head, and people all could watch. Now, there was another law passed that any persons against the assembly would die. And this was the beginning of a reign of terror. We had the first victim of this law being Marie Antoinette, who died October 1793, 9 months after the king. And the National Assembly was letting anybody get killed that was against them, with Maximilien Robespierre being the one to decide. Now, eventually, the streets of France were running with blood. So much had happened. And we started to see that the assembly was noticing. They're like, I think Maximilian might be killing too many people. I think he's gone a little crazy. And finally, they told him that he had gone crazy and that now he was going to be sentenced to death. And he himself became a victim of the guillotine. And that was just the beginning of the turmoil and troubles that were going to take place in France over the next few years. That's the end of this chapter, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.